Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, namaskar and vanakkam. Welcome to Bob's Radio 21.37 FM, and this is Bob with you. Well, dear friends, thank you so much for tuning in today on our Wellness Wednesdays, where we have so many nice things to talk about. We have so many segments, and we have a very special guest with us all the way from Sweden. But before we go into all that, if you are tuning in for the first time, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you'd like to listen to our previous segments, please go to our YouTube page, Bob's Radio 21.37 FM, and you'll find all our previous segments there. If you would like to talk to us or get in touch with us, do write to us at bobsradio21.37@gmail.com, or simply send us a text on +91 906 181 7307, and we love to hear from you. Well, dear friend, if you are listening to us from Facebook, thank you so much. If you are listening to us much later in the week, well, we are glad that you were able to listen. And do send us your comments and feedbacks, and we love to hear all that you have to tell us today. It's been a wonderful week so far. We had an amazing guest on our Mondays, and we had some wonderful stories yesterday, and today we have come to our Wellness Wednesday. I have with me some wonderful RJs. Let me say a quick hi to them. Hi, RJ Liz, how are you doing?
Doing great, Bob.
Nice to have you. And I also have RJ JC. Hi, JC.
Doing great, Bob.
Hey, nice to hear you. And Sarah. Hi, RJ Sarah.
Hi, Bob.
Good to hear your voice as well. Well, we have RJs joining from different parts of the world, and that is what makes Bob's Radio so special. So do send us your feedbacks, do send us your song requests, and we'd love to play them on air. Well, we received a song request for one of those old hymns. I love to play this hymn. This is also one of my favorites. Let's listen to this beautiful song, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms.
What a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. I'm leaning, safe and secure from all alarm. On the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Safe and secure from all alarm. I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. I'm leaning, safe and secure from all alarm. I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning on the everlasting arms.
Wow, leaning on the everlasting arms. Indeed, and that is the only place where we lean and find rest and peace and comfort. Well, that's a wonderful song. I hope you've all enjoyed that. And with that, we always on Bob's Radio try to look around, try to find out what's happening and talk a little bit about that. Now, for the first time today, we have Bob's Radio India correspondent with us. For the first time from India, we welcome Viju Alex. Hi, Viju Alex.
Hi, Bob. Hi, listeners. It's Viju from India.
Hey, wonderful to have you with us today. I always wanted somebody on the ground there in India to give us the real-time information. And today we have some news that has come out of India, and I thought that you can bring us the latest updates on that. ഇന്ന് വാസ്തവം പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്ത് തന്നെ ഒരു ദുഃഖത്തിൻ്റെ ദിവസമാണ്. കാരണം ഏറ്റവും ഉന്നതനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വ്യക്തി മരണപ്പെട്ടു. അപ്പം കെൻ യു ഗിവ് us some details? അതിൻ്റെ വിശദീകരണങ്ങൾ ഒന്ന് തരാമോ?
ഷുവർ. നമ്മൾ കേട്ട പോലെ അദ്ദേഹം ഇന്ത്യയുടെ പരമോന്നത ഡിഫൻസിന്റെ പരമോന്നത പദവി വഹിച്ച വ്യക്തിയാണ്. ചീഫ് ഡിഫൻസ് സ്റ്റാഫ് ആയിരുന്നു. 2019 അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് പൊസിഷൻ കിട്ടി. ഇതിനു മുമ്പ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു പൊസിഷൻ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷെ സാം മെനാക്ഷ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു വ്യക്തിക്ക് ചീഫ് മാർഷൽ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ
ഞാൻ ഓർക്കുന്നുണ്ട്,
ഇന്ത്യ പാക് വാറിൽ കൊടുത്തിരുന്നു. അതിനുശേഷം ഇദ്ദേഹമാണ് ഏറ്റവും ഉന്നതമായ പദവിയിലെത്തിയത്. അത് വളരെ സങ്കടകരമായ ഒരു വാർത്തയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കുനൂരിൽ, നമുക്കറിയാം ഊട്ടിയിൽ കുനൂരിലെ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ബേസിലോട്ടുള്ള യാത്രയിലാണ് ഈ അപകടം ഉണ്ടായത്. അദ്ദേഹവും ബിപിൻ റാവത്തും അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ വൈഫ് ഉൾപ്പെടെ പിന്നെ 11 പേരും കൂടെ മരിച്ചു. ടോട്ടല് 13 പേര് മരണപ്പെട്ടു. ഒരാൾ മാത്രമാണ് രക്ഷപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുള്ളത്.
അതിന്റെ ഈ ഹെലികോപ്റ്റർ ക്രാഷ് ആയിരുന്നു അല്ലേ?
അതെ, ടെക്നിക്കൽ ഇഷ്യൂസ് ആണെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. പിന്നെ രക്തത്തിലിടിച്ചു. 2-3 ദിവസത്തിനകം അതിന്റെ വിവരങ്ങൾ അറിയും. അതുമല്ലാതെ തന്നെ മിലിറ്ററി ഒരു സമഗ്രമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അന്വേഷണം നടത്തുന്നുണ്ട്. എന്താണ് റിയൽ റീസൺ? ഇത്രയും ഉന്നതമായ ഒരു പോസ്റ്റ് ആയതുകൊണ്ട് വളരെ ശക്തമായ ഒരു അന്വേഷണം നടന്നുണ്ട്. എന്നിട്ട് നമുക്ക് പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടുള്ള വാർത്ത നമുക്ക് അറിയാൻ കഴിയുള്ളൂ.
ഈ ഹെലികോപ്റ്റർ ഞാൻ കേട്ടത് ഇറ്റ്സ് വൺ ഓഫ് ദ മോസ്റ്റ് അഡ്വാൻസ്ഡ് ഹെലികോപ്റ്റേഴ്സ്. സാധാരണ നമ്മുടെ ഫ്ലീറ്റിലുള്ളതല്ല, വളരെ അഡ്വാൻസ്ഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഹെലികോപ്റ്റർ ആണ്.
ഉന്നത പോസ്റ്റിലുള്ള ഒരു വ്യക്തികളും ഇത്രയും സ്റ്റാഫും പോകുമ്പോൾ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ സുരക്ഷ ഏറ്റവും അഡ്വാൻസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഹെലികോപ്റ്റർ തന്നെ ആയിരിക്കും തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും. ടെക്നിക്കൽ ഇഷ്യൂ ഇല്ലാത്തതായിരിക്കും.
അതെ. അപ്പോൾ പുള്ളിക്കാരൻ്റെ പൊസിഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എല്ലാ നേവൽ, എയർഫോഴ്സ്, ആർമി ഇതിന്റെ എല്ലാം ഏറ്റവും ടോപ്പിലുള്ള ആളാണ് അല്ലേ?
മുമ്പ് നമുക്ക് ഈ പൊസിഷൻ നമുക്ക് രാഷ്ട്രപതിയായിരുന്നു ഇത് ഹാൻഡിൽ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്. അപ്പം അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ ഇപ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു പോസ്റ്റ് നമ്മുടെ നരേന്ദ്രമോദി ഗവൺമെന്റ് കൊടുത്തതാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കഴിവുകളും പിന്നെ എല്ലാത്തിനും ഏകോപിപ്പിക്കേണ്ട ഒരു ആവശ്യവും. കാരണം നമുക്ക് അനേക ത്രെറ്റാണല്ലോ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും അങ്ങനെ വരുന്നതുകൊണ്ട്. അങ്ങനെ സാം മനേഷയ്ക്ക് ശേഷം അതിശക്തനായ ഒരു ഡിഫൻസിലെ ഒരു മേധാവിയാണ് ഇദ്ദേഹം. പിന്നെ ഇദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ പഠനമൊക്കെ നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ഇത് പിന്നെ പഠിച്ചതൊക്കെ ഒത്തിരി മീൻസ് മിഷണറി സ്കൂളുകളിലാണ് പഠിച്ചതൊക്കെ. പഠിച്ചത് ഇദ്ദേഹം ഇവിടെയാണ് കേംബ്രി ഒരു സ്കൂളിംഗ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അതെല്ലാം ഡെറാഡൂണിലാണ് പുള്ളി പഠിച്ചതെല്ലാം. അതിനുശേഷം ഷംലയിൽ പഠിച്ചു, നാഷണൽ ഡിഫൻസ് അക്കാഡമി ഒക്കെ പഠിച്ചത്. എഡ്വേർഡ് സ്കൂളിൽ പഠിച്ചു. പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട് ഒരു മിഷണറി സ്കൂൾസിലാണ് പുള്ളിയുടെ പഠനമൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടായത്. എങ്കിലും വളരെ സങ്കടകരമായ ഒരു വാർത്തയാണ്. നമുക്ക്
തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും
ലോകം, ഇന്ത്യ മുഴുവൻ വിഷമിക്കുന്നതോടൊപ്പം നമ്മളും നമ്മുടെ ദുഃഖം നമ്മൾ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു.
അതെ, കാരണം ഇന്ത്യയുടെ ഉന്നതമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു പദവി, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഡിഫൻസിന്റെ ഏറ്റവും ടോപ്പിൽ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ഒരാൾ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു അപകടത്തിൽ കൂടെ കടന്നു പോകാന്ന് പറയുന്നത് തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നമുക്ക് ഇന്ത്യയിലുള്ളവർക്ക് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അതൊരു സങ്കടകരമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വാർത്തയാണ് തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും. പക്ഷേ നമ്മളെപ്പോഴും നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ബിഗർ പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവ് നമ്മളെപ്പോഴും ഈ കാര്യത്തിലൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ കാണാറുണ്ടല്ലേ? അപ്പോൾ അതെങ്ങനെയാണ് വിച്ചാൻ്റെ ഒരു പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവിൽ എങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇതിനെ?
തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നമ്മൾ ദൈവമക്കളാണ്. നമ്മളെപ്പോഴും പിന്നെ ഉദാഹരണം നമ്മൾ 1 പത്രോസ് 2:17 പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ എല്ലാവരെയും ബഹുമാനിപ്പിൻ, സഹോദരവർഗത്തെ സ്നേഹിപ്പിൻ, ദൈവത്തെ ഭയപ്പെടുവിൻ, രാജാവിനെ ബഹുമാനിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ നേതാക്കന്മാരെയൊക്കെ ബഹുമാനിക്കുകയും ഓണർ ചെയ്യുകയും ചെയ്യണം. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അവരുടെ രാഷ്ട്രത്തിന്റെ ദുരന്തത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ ക്രിസ്ത്യൻസ് എന്നുള്ള നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും തന്നെ അതിൽ നമ്മൾ പങ്കാളികളാകുകയും അതിൽ നമ്മുടെ എന്താണ് പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുകയും ചെയ്യും. അതാണ് നമ്മളോട് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ളത് തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും. പിന്നെ എപ്പോഴും നമ്മുടെ ആശ്രയം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ബൈബിളിൽ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ ചിലർ കുതിരയിൽ ആശ്രയിക്കും, ചിലർ രഥങ്ങളിൽ ആശ്രയിക്കും. ഞങ്ങളുടെ ദൈവമായ യഹോവയുടെ നാമത്തെ പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നമുക്ക് ആ പ്രത്യാശ അതാണ്.
അത് തന്നെ ദാറ്റ്സ് ദ പോയിന്റ്. ഐ മീൻ നമ്മളിങ്ങനെ ഇതുപോലുള്ള ഉന്നതമായിട്ടുള്ള ഡിഫെൻസീവ് പൊസിഷൻസിലൊക്കെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ there's a lot of trust in them, people put a lot of trust in them. അപ്പം നമുക്ക് അതിനൊരു പാരലായിട്ട് ഒരു ബിബ്ലിക്കൽ പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവ് നമ്മൾ ഇന്നോട് ചിന്തിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ഇപ്പം just Vicham പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ തന്നെ, we don't trust in horses or in chariots. Our trust is in the Lord, and that is where we find true security and shelter. അല്ലേ?
ആമേൻ. അതെ, തീർച്ചയായും.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think you can bring us news like this, many more from India. So thank you for being our India correspondent and joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, dear listeners, that was it for our current news that we look around and talk about. With that, we are on our Wellness Wednesdays, and we have our health coach, fitness expert. You can call her many names, one of the best there. We have RJ JZ and RJ Sarah here to take us through that segment. Over to you, RJ Sarah.
Hi, JC.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to have you.
Yes. Good evening. What are we going to talk about today?
Let's talk about the gut-brain connection.
Oh, what is that gut-brain connection?
Well, the gut is the gut and the brain is the brain. It's obviously
Okay.
self-explanatory, but this is a new frontier in nutritional science. Although we have always had an intuitive understanding of the gut-brain connection, because when you feel happy, yeah, right. We even say that I have butterflies in my stomach, or when you're
Yes,
tensed,
yes.
there's a knot in my stomach. So this is something we all intuitively know, but it hasn't been dealt with extensively as it has in the past 4 or 5 years, because people are becoming aware of the food they eat and the reactions that they are going through. So the gut brain connection basically says that the brain has an effect on the gut or the stomach, and the stomach has an effect, and there is a very strong communication between the gut and the brain, and this communication is often coming under the term called the gut brain axis. You can find that term also usually. And this connection is established through various forms, like the lymphatic system, through the immune system, the neurotransmitters that we have, as well as the vagus nerve. So this is something very real, and it does communicate. Remember in the book of Daniel, we talked about earlier how the food that he ate actually had an impact on his functioning,
Yes.
his performance. So it was not a miracle. What happened there was not a miracle. It's just a natural outworking of the gut and the brain communicating with each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now tell me, how does this gut-brain connection translate to personal wellness?
In order to understand that, the important thing we need to, like I mentioned before, is that there's a very real connection between the way we feel, which is decided by the food that we eat. For example, the serotonin, which is the happy hormone, which contributes to feelings of happiness. You must have heard of it, right? So the
Yes,
gut,
yes.
actually, most of the serotonin is produced in the gut. There are 100 billion neurons in the human brain. Of that, the gut contains 500 million neurons. So, our personal wealth, obviously, anxiety, depression, even, there's a study which says that if the gut brain barrier is weak, that means if they're not firing signals and if you're not eating the right stuff, what happens is bacteria and what is known as lipopolysaccharide, which is an inflammatory toxin, can leak from the gut into the blood. It's not supposed to go into the blood, but it will leak into the blood. And what results is severe mental depression, dementia, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's. So there is everything, everything is at stake. We are even studying about the blood-brain barrier, just as important as is a gut brain barrier. So there's a very strong connection. For example, so many other neurotransmitters are also produced in the gut. And what we eat or what we don't eat, what is lacking in our gut, can affect the way we feel. Your gut microbe also produces another neurotransmitter known as GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. It helps control feelings of fear and anxiety. So on one side, we have the serotonin hormone, the happiness hormone, and the other side, we have the GABA, which is fear and anxiety. And this is pretty self-explanatory. It's very self-explanatory because, when you're feeling afraid, you have a certain feeling in your gut. And if you're having a lot of stress, you're going to have GI issues, which is very common. If you ask doctors, they can tell that to you. A lot of people with chronic GI issues often have underlying stress issues, So there's a very strong connection and is very much implicating our personal health.
Oh, That was, a whole lot of new information for me, JC.
Yeah, that I just crammed
Yes.
into those few
Yes,
minutes.
yes, that's a lot of stuff. Yes. And what kind of food is recommended for an optimal gut-brain relationship?
Okay. In order for the gut brain to fire right, in order for us to feel right, in order for us not to have these anxiety, indigestion, and all these issues, obviously what we eat matters. So the key word, RJ Sarah, we need to remember is fiber and
Okay.
fermented stuff. Okay. So if you're having a lot of fiber, if you're having a lot of, because, they say that in the food that you eat, everything in nature doesn't come like a cookie or a pasta. It doesn't have like one strain of ingredient. There'll be fiber, there'll be nutrients, there'll be minerals, all packaged into one, and that's an apple. You just don't have juice. When God gave you, he gave you the fiber and the juice and everything packed into one. So the fiber is to feed the bacteria in your gut, and the minerals and the nutrients is to feed the rest of your system. That's usually how in nutritional science, that's how they differentiate everything. So you need to have fiber. You need to eat food in its wholesome form, which is what we always say on Bob's Radio. You need to have vegetables and sprouts and green leaves. If you can have a fistful of raw, uncooked vegetables, you've done it. You've done it for your gut bacteria. And then we come to probiotics and prebiotics. Now, prebiotics is basically bacteria that your gut needs. Fiber that your gut needs. And probiotics is stuff like, sauerkraut, tempeh, kimchi, fermented stuff. Okay. So you need prebiotics, you need probiotics, you need fiber. And another thing is omega-3 acids. Omega-3s that can come from animal sources as well, but you can get it from plant sources, flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed. So you have all of this stuff in your diet. And green tea actually helps for the gut-brain connection. Polyphenol-rich foods, clear cacao, not the one that you get in the Cadbury chocolate, the pure cacao. Yeah.
Yes.
Green tea, and all that helps. So polyphenol rich foods, high fiber foods, omega-3s, and fermented foods. That's the way to go for a clear gut brain connection. Yes.
All right, wonderful. Well, that was some amazing information, JZ. I think we need to take down notes because I'm sure this is information that is not readily available there, and you're putting them all together, in a wonderful package. So once again, thank you for talking to us about the gut.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, RJ Sarah. And hopefully our viewers, our listeners will start eating more vegetables and raw stuff.
Yes, they will. All right, so that was the wonderful segment, and we usually have these great talks on Wellness Wednesdays with RJ JC, and I hope you're all listening to her and taking down notes and following what she's saying, because I know that she's done it in her life and she's reaping those benefits. So definitely she has walked the talk. All right, so with that, we come to our next segment, Sound Bites. Now, today we have one of our young sisters who has sent us these sound bites. Now, this was a result of a youth camp, where we recently had a session where the youngsters were talking about platforms where they can share their thoughts and their creativity. So Bob's Radio provided that platform, and we welcomed those inputs and those messages from all our youngsters out there in India. So today we have a young sister. Her name is Jeshma T. John. She's a first-year BSc nursing student. She's the daughter of John T.U. from Karnataka, and she is today bringing us sound bites. Let's hear Jeshma T. John.
എന്തിനാണ് നീ എന്നോട് എപ്പോഴും യേശുവിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുന്നത്?
ആഹാ, നല്ല ചോദ്യമാണല്ലോ. നമ്മൾ വണ്ടിയിൽ പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുക, നമ്മുടെ വണ്ടിന്റെ അടുത്ത് കൂടെ വേറൊരു വണ്ടി സൈഡ് സ്റ്റാൻഡ് എടുക്കാതെ പോകുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ സൈഡ് സ്റ്റാൻഡ് എടുക്കാൻ പറയുമോ ഇല്ലയോ? അങ്ങനെ നമ്മൾ പറയാതെ അവർക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും സംഭവിച്ചാൽ തെറ്റ് ആരുടെ ഭാഗത്താ? അതേപോലെ എല്ലാവരുടെ ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ താഴെ പാപം എന്ന സൈഡ് സ്റ്റാൻഡ് ഇരിക്കും. അത് നമ്മൾ എടുക്കാതെ വണ്ടി ഓടിച്ചാൽ താഴെ, അതായത് നരകത്തിൽ പോയി വീഴും. എപ്പോൾ കർത്താവായ യേശുക്രിസ്തുവിൽ നമ്മൾ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നുവോ, ആ പാപം എന്ന സൈഡ് സ്റ്റാൻഡ് എടുക്കപ്പെടും. സോ നിങ്ങൾ എല്ലാവരും നിങ്ങളുടെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ ആ പാപം എന്ന സൈഡ് സ്റ്റാൻഡ് എടുത്ത് ജീവിതമാകുന്ന വണ്ടിനെ ഓടിക്കുക.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Jashma. Sin, which is our side stand, we need to take it off and then the vehicle starts moving. Liz, have you driven a bike or a scooter?
Yes, I have.
You have?
A scooty.
And have you ever driven it with the side stand?
Yes, I did.
Well, that is something that most of us do, right? When we first start, driving, even if it's a cycle. Today's cycles have a different stand, but in the early days they had the side stand. And also for the scooters and the bikes, we always sometimes forget to take the side stand. So that's a good thought that she's brought about, talking about the side stands in our life, the sins that draw us back and that cause us to fall. We need to confess and remove them from our life to have a successful Christian life. Thank you so much for that, Jeshma. And with that, I just want to once again announce about the game segment that we're having. Well, this is for the whole of the month. Like I announced yesterday, we have this special gift that we're going to give out to a brother and to a sister who's going to come first in our singing competition. So we will be accepting audio clips from all our listeners, all ages, wherever you are. Do send us your audio clips on our Gmail or on our WhatsApp. Let me repeat that again. That's bobsradio21.37@gmail.com, or you can send it to us on our WhatsApp +91 906 181 7307. So do send them across to us, and at the end of this month, we'll be having a winner to our singing competition. Well, with that, let's go to our second song for today. And this is a song sung by Johnson Peter. Now, to our listeners, we have Johnson Peter coming on air tomorrow. So tomorrow on our Talent Thursdays, the 9th of December, we'll be having Johnson Peter joining us live. So let's listen to this beautiful song by Johnson Peter.
കർത്താവിനെ നാം സ്തുതിക്കാം ഹേ ദൈവമക്കളേ സന്തോഷത്തിൽ നാം അർപ്പിക്കാം സ്തോത്രത്തിൻ ബലിയെ നാം സ്തോത്രം 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 കഴിക്കാം സ്തോത്രം സ്തോത്രം നാം സ്തോത്രം കഴിക്കാം. വിശുദ്ധ സ്നേഹബന്ധത്താൽ ഒരേ ശരീരമായി നാം ചേർക്കപ്പെട്ടതാകയാൽ ചേരുവിൻ സ്തുതിക്കായി നാം സ്തോത്രം 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 കഴിക്കാം. സ്തോത്രം സ്തോത്രം നാം സ്തോത്രം കഴിക്കാം.
Wow, what soulful singing by Johnson Peter. And we're going to have him tomorrow on air talking about his life and some live music as well. Well, with that, we have come to the talk show of our radio, and we have a very, very special guest with us. Let me introduce her to you. Today, we have Michelle Job. She is born in Trichy, Tamil Nadu, graduated from Karunya University in 2004 as an electrical engineer. And then she went on to work in Jesus Calls and also with the Joyce Meyer Ministries as content editor and writer. Her husband, Vijay Samuel, kids, Caitlin and Christine. Her hobbies involve traveling, blogging, both on Instagram and YouTube. She also travels for work and other interests to Denmark, Germany, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, UK, and the Netherlands. Well, currently, she is in Stockholm, Sweden, where it is very, very cold. Now we'll get to know more from her. Let's bring Michelle Job on air.
Bob's Radio 21.37. Keep bobbing along.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Bob's Radio 21.37.
Hey, Bob. Thank you for having me. It's such a joy to be on your show, and I thoroughly enjoyed your correspondence news and RJ JC and RJ Sarah. They gave such an amazing. They set the stage for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We are so happy that you're here with us. But before we start, tell us about the weather there. I mean, Sweden must be very, very cold there today, right?
Yes. So yesterday, Sweden recorded its lowest temperature in the last 50 years. So Stockholm, we experienced -17 yesterday, and the northernmost parts of Sweden, the temperatures went down to -42 degrees centigrade.
Oh my goodness. I mean, for us who've lived all our lives in this part of the world, I'm finding it difficult to even process that number, -17. I mean, how does that feel? I just can't process that. It's just beyond me. But that is also the joy of living in that part of the world, isn't it?
Exactly. It is a very, very unique experience, especially for those of us who come from the tropical countries.
Yeah.
Like the whole country, you experience the changing seasons literally. Like for me, I have just studied summer, autumn, winter, spring in the textbook, and I got to experience that for real when I came to Sweden.
Absolutely. Well, there is so much that we want to talk with you about. There's lots that is there that we want to share. Let's begin with your journey. Now, you come from a missionary family. Can you tell us a little bit about your grandparents and the stories you heard growing up?
Yes, for sure, Bob. So I come, my grandparents, my father's father was a very learned man. Back in the day, must have been in the mid 19th. He went to Toronto and he got his PhD. He was the head of the department for zoology in Madurai University. He was an extremely learned man. My grandmother was born in Baghdad back in those days. Her mother worked in the embassy there in Baghdad. She worked for the Indian embassy. So she also came from great wealth, and she was an extremely learned person as well. But both of them, they didn't have a personal experience with God. And their encounter with God happened when their only daughter, they realized, had a polio attack. Their only daughter was 6 years old and she couldn't walk. And that's when they looked to God. At that time, their education, their wealth, nothing could help them in that desperate situation. And when they looked to God, and my dad was the oldest son, my dad still recalls the morning when his younger sister stood up and walked. So it was a miracle that changed their lives, and they started serving the Lord full time. They were missionaries. They were pastors in Madurai for 30 years. And in their late 70s, they felt the call of God upon their lives to go and minister in Manipur, northeast India, where two Christian tribes were fighting with each other, Nagas and Kukis. And for the very first time, it was in their church, the Nagas and Kukis came together and worshiped the Lord. So that is a little about my background.
Wonderful.
Hi, Michelle. RJ Liz here.
Hey, Liz.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Liz.
Okay. Going further, you spoke about your grandparents, but I also heard when you were speaking the other day, you told me that there was an incident that changed your dad's life when you were just 10 years old. So could you share that with us? And also, why do you say that talking to God is not a one-way communication?
For sure, Liz. So my dad, when he was a young man, he grew up in this very strict, conservative Christian home. So, and as a young person, he couldn't. He found that very restraining. So he, as much as possible, he could go away from the Lord. He went away from the Lord, and he led a very a not so great life. And he got married to my mom. They had 2 kids. And one day when I was 10 years old, my father and I, we met with a road accident. Like, we both of us were commuting by bike. A huge truck came and hit us. And it was midnight. It was a national highway, and there was a huge traffic jam. My mother and my brother were in that traffic jam, not knowing that those who met with the accident are me and my dad. And my dad was unconscious, and I was 10 years old. Without my knowledge, I screamed, "Jesus, save us! Jesus, save us!" And miraculously, it happened so that there were 2 pastors. Half an hour before this incident, they were leaving their church, and they felt a strong prompting in their heart that they should take the national highway. They didn't know why they felt that prompting in their hearts, but they just followed that intuition, and they came in the national highway. In fact, my dad overtook them, and the entire accident happened in front of their eyes. But they felt if we get involved, then they may call us for police case. So they rode past us. But in that night, when they heard me cry, "Jesus, save us," they stopped their bike, they returned, and they picked me and my dad, put us in an auto, and we had to commute another 20 kilometers for the nearest hospital. I had a head injury, blood was dripping from my head. And and miraculously, very, very miraculously, I and my dad got saved. And that is when my dad gave his life to God. And that's when he knew what a precious gift this is. And ever since, his life has never been the same again. And one thing that my dad has always taught me is speaking to God is a two-way communication. He always, the verse that he used to say was in Psalm 139, the psalmist writes, "All my days are written in the book, even before one of them came to be." So he always said, "Michelle, your entire life is written down. If something is written, you can read it, you can find out." So when I was in 12th, he told me, "Which college you are going to study, what you are going to do, everything is written down. You ask God." So I had no ambitions in life. I just wanted to study music and English literature. But since my dad told me this, I asked God, "God, what am I going to do next?" And God spoke through me to Deuteronomy. He said, "The land which you're going to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which receives the water of heaven. The eyes of the Lord will be upon it from the beginning to the end of the year." And the Spirit of the Lord whispered in my heart, saying, "It's Karunya." So that's just a small example how God has guided me through all these years.
Wonderful. It's so amazing to hear the story. It started with your grandparents, and then your dad, through that accident, he changed his life. He knew the Lord. He had a personal encounter with God. But then in 2016, an epic shift occurred in your life. Now, what happened, and how did that experience lead you to discover your true potential as you were trying to cope with that grief?
Yes, for sure, Paul. Well, I told my dad's story, and now I have to tell my mom's story. When my mom was pregnant with my younger brother, when she was 7 months pregnant, she started to bleed profusely, and she was rushed to the hospital, the very same hospital where she was working. And then the doctors told like she is in a life threat, critical stage, because she has O negative blood. And she said, either the baby will survive, or you will survive, or we are, and if anything can happen to both of you. And at that point, my mom said, "God, if you are out there, give me this baby and give me my life, and I will live it for you." And my brother was born in a normal delivery with no extra medical intervention. He safely arrived. So my brother was a very, very special child. Since he was 7 months premature, my parents always loved him very dearly. They always cared for him extra. He was 4 years younger to me, and he was a wonderful person. His name was Jonathan. He also studied in Karunya. In 2016, one day after he played keyboard in the church, he boarded the train to go to Chennai, and within an hour we got a phone call saying he met with an accident. He fell down from the train.
Oh.
And he was 29 years old. We have heard people dying, every day we hear someone passing, but when someone close to you, someone as close as a family member passes, the pain is indescribable. The kind of pain you can literally feel in your chest. Like our entire world, I cannot describe the amount of pain and grief we went through, but my parents were so strong in the Lord. Their faith was unshakable, and that's what helped me rise in the situation. As months passed, I don't know, I don't know if any of you hearing through this, or if any of your friends are going through a time of grief. Well, this is what happened to me. When I was struggling to process this kind of pain, I felt this voice in my heart that said, Michelle, pick up your camera. Such an odd thing to do when you're trying to process grief, right? Well, they'll say, go to a counselor, or do this, do that. There are so many, but the least you would think of is taking up a camera. And I didn't have a professional camera at that time. I don't know professional photography. So I just hired a camera. And I did my first photo shoot. And from what happened as days went by is beyond what my mind could fathom. Well, I will tell about my photography journey a little later, but what I'd like to say is, so often God puts so many talents within us, and we think, oh, well, that's just a hobby. That's just something I do it in my spare time, or on a Sunday morning at church, or just at this time. Little do we realize the potential our talents have. It's like a dynamite. When we pursue the God-given talents that it has placed within us, it transforms us within, and it opens doors outside beyond what our human minds can fathom. So if you
Yep,
are blessed with a
absolutely.
talent, please pursue that, because one verse that I always believe in is, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, neither has the mind of man conceived what the Lord has prepared for those who love him. And the next verse says, but by his Spirit he has revealed it. So today I encourage you to find out what God's put inside of you and pursue it.
I'm so glad, Michelle, that you were able to discover the talents that God has put in you. I have gone through your photography, a couple of them, and I don't know how do you manage to see and capture the wonder of everything you see around you. Are there any photography tips you would like to give our listeners, which maybe someone would have given you, or you would have thought someone would have given you when you started off? Also, what are some of the major events that you had an opportunity to be a part of?
For sure, Liz, I will share. So the one thing I don't see photography as a way of playing with the creator. It's an act of co-creating with the creator. In Genesis chapter 1, God created everything, but later he calls Adam and he says, name each thing, give it the name. So when he said name, he didn't say just crocodile, elephant, hippopotamus. When Adam declared the name, it he declared the characteristics of that being, and it came into being. So God, in his likeness, created Adam, and he wanted Adam to do what he did. And that same process continues today. And that's how I see photography, as an act of play with the creator. So every time I take my camera, I say, God, today I want to see my clients through your eyes. And when I give them the photograph, I want them to see themselves the way you see them. So a little example is, I photographed an Indian family here in Stockholm, a very ordinary looking family, not like the, very picture perfect families we see in the magazines or the TV commercials, very ordinary family. I photographed them and I gave them the pictures, and they texted me back saying, Michelle, for the very first time, we found ourselves very beautiful. So that is how photography is. It is an act of co-creating with the creator and looking at everything around us in pure awe and wonder. Well, yeah, so you asked for photography tips, right? So the number one photography tip is, especially if you have a kid, don't ask your child to smile. Okay, that is the biggest mistake I did as a parent. Be like, smile, smile, please smile, look here, look here, look here. And that child gets miserable and we get miserable. So rather see what makes, you need to think like a child if you're photographing a child, think like a teen if you're photographing a teen, think like an adult if you're photographing an adult, what makes them happy. So I conduct a photography workshop, and it's called, my style of photography is called authentic photography. Capture authentic smiles, authentic moments. So often when our child or our loved ones are having real authentic moments, the mistake we do is stop them and say, look here and smile. Don't do that. When they are enjoying the moment, capture the moment as it is. The number 2 tip is look for symmetry in your pictures. Is there, just take a moment before you capture the picture, look at the background. Are there geometrical shapes here? It could be a window, it could be a door, it could be some kind of triangle, something, different shapes. We are surrounded by geometrical shapes. See how you can creatively include that in your picture. So those are the 2 tips I'd like to give you.
And I think you also had the opportunity to even go to some of those big events in Sweden.
Yes, yes. As I told you, I remember 5 years ago, even before I picked up the camera, I used to declare, I will stand in front of kings and not mean men. There is this verse, I don't know if it's in Isaiah. Every day I used to declare that. And when I came here, I didn't know a single soul in Sweden. I didn't know the language. I didn't know anyone. But that's what God does when you pursue his. He opened up ways where there's no way. And I got the opportunity to photograph for the Indian Embassy of Sweden and Latvia. For 2 years, I photographed ministers, finance ministers, chief ministers, Padma Shris, whichever dignitary visited Sweden from India, I got to photograph them. I got to photograph the Nobel Nightcap in 2017, where the Nobel laureates, in fact, this is a Nobel week, and this week in Sweden, they are receiving the Nobel Prizes as we speak.
Okay.
So I got to photograph the Nobel Nightcap with the Nobel laureates, meet with the top students of Sweden. And I'd like to tell a short story here. In 2018, we moved back to India, and I thought I will quit everything. I was so depressed because everywhere there was photography ban, and I didn't have the freedom I had in Sweden to photograph. I thought I'll just sell all my gear. And that's when God reminded me, Michelle, did you start photography for Sweden? Or did you start it as a way of, co-creating with me? And God took me back to the start, and he said, it is what we do together, not your location. Then I said, yes, God, let's start playing again. And one day I receive a message on Instagram saying, Michelle, I'm coming from America. I want you to photograph me in Hyderabad. I said, okay. She gave me the address and I went to the address. It was a 3-story building in Jubilee Hills. If you know Jubilee Hills, that is where all the rich and famous people in Hyderabad live. It was a 3-story building. There were a fleet of cars. There were black cats with guns, and a security escorted me, and he made me sign, and he took me in a lift within the house, and I photographed like so many servants. After everything, I asked this girl, excuse me, can I know whose house I am in? Who is this person in the big picture? She laughed and said, hey, Michelle, that's my grandfather. He was the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh.
Oh.
So, and I asked her, how did you find me? And she said, I just found you on Instagram. One of the things, if you're into business, I always tell God, you are my SEO. When people search, you have to bring my name up. And, that's what God does. Doors which you have never imagined, He opens that for you.
Absolutely. Now, I know we've spoke a little bit about Sweden, and I know that you're also taking language courses in Swedish. So maybe just for our listeners, we on Bob's Radio, we love to share other languages from different parts of the world. So this is the first time we have someone from Sweden. So maybe you can share a couple of phrases in Swedish and maybe sing a few lines.
Absolutely, with pleasure. So the first thing you're going to do if you meet a Swede is greet that person. And the way they greet each other is hey, hey. So in other
that's nice.
Yes.
Hey.
In other countries, if we say hey, it's quite disrespectful, right? But in Sweden, that's how they greet each other. They always say hey, hey. They say hey. If they find the person very pleasing, they say hey, hey. So they say it twice. And the way to say thank you is tack. So tack is thank you. If you want to say, much deeper and feel the thank you, you can say tack, tack. So repeat it twice. That becomes more profound. So hey, hey, tack, tack. And the way you say good morning is good morgon. It again sounds quite disrespectful in English, but that is how it says, good morgon. So those are the 3 words which you can easily remember. Hey, hey, tak, tak, good morgon. And now I'm saying
there's one of our listeners asking, how do you say hello in Swedish?
Hey, it's just, or they say hello. It is hey for hi, everything. It's hey. Okay. Or some say hello, but that's very rare. Most people everywhere say hey. So if you get a chance to visit IKEA in Hyderabad or Mumbai or in any of your countries, you would see hey, H-E-J. That is hey, H-E-J. That's how it's written. So I'll sing the birthday song, the Swedish birthday song. Like most countries sing happy birthday, same, but Sweden always does things differently. So they have a very own happy birthday song, and this is how it goes.
All right.
Jag må ha leva ut i 100 år. Jag visst ska ha leva ut i 100 år.
Oh, tak.
Varsågod.
Thank you so much. Well, dear listeners, we have so much that we want to talk about. We're going to come back to Michelle. Please don't go anywhere. There is so much to her story. After the next song, we're going to hear an amazing transformational journey that she's had in her life. The story doesn't end here, so let's quickly go to this beautiful song by Premji Ebenezer and be right back.
மேகம் போன்ற சாட்சிகளே எம்மை முன் சென்ற சுத்தர்களே பரலோகத்தின் வீதிகளில் எங்கள் ஓட்ட ஓட்டத்தை காண்பவரே, இவ்வுலகென்னை மயக்கையிலே, சாத்தானின் சதிகள் வலைக்கையிலே, இவ்வுலகென்னை மயக்கையிலே, சாத்தானின் சதிகள் வலைக்கையிலே, உங்கள் சாட்சியை நினைத்திடுவேன், உந்தன் ஓட்டத்தை தொடர்ந்திடுவேன், உந்தன் சாட்சியை நினைத்திடுவேன், உந்தன் ஓட்டத்தை தொடர்ந்திடுவேன். அக்கினியுள்ளே வேகவில்லை, தண்ணீரினுள்ளே மூழ்கவில்லை, கடும்புயல் அடித்தும் அசையவில்லை, உன்னத தேவனின் சீஷர்களே. முச்செடியின் மோசேயே, தேவ மகிமையை கண்டவனே, பார்வோனின் அரண்மனை வாழ்க்கையையும் குப்பையாய் எண்ணின சீமானே, நிந்தையின் குரலை கேட்கையிலே, தீரப்பின் வாசலில் நின்றவனே, நிந்தையின் குரலை கேட்கையிலே, தீரப்பின் வாசலில் நின்றவனே, உம்மைப் போல் நானும் ஆகணுமே, அவரின் நண்பனாய் மாறணுமே, உன்னைப் போல் நானும் ஆகணுமே, அவரின் நண்பனாய் ஆகணுமே. அக்கினியுள்ளே வேகவில்லை.
Wow, what a beautiful song. It's always a joy to hear Premji Anna sing and the life that he gives to his songs and to his lyrics. Well, welcome back, dear listeners. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Bob.
Well, we've always had a goal to lose weight. Now, talking about me, myself, we've always started on a plan to lose weight, and weight loss is part of many of our lives. At least the plan is part of many of our lives, and we have big goals in mind. But halfway through, we always give up and when we don't see any significant change. But I know for a fact that you have succeeded and had an incredible physical transformation, having lost 24 kgs just in under 1 year. Now, can you share with our listeners how you began this journey?
With pleasure, Bob. Well, at least many of you had a plan, right? I was one with absolutely no plan. To share about my journey, I need to give a little backstory about myself. I grew up in a small town where no one spoke about weight, no one spoke about, being active. The only people who ran and who did stuff were the one or two people in the class who did running and jumping and who got the praise. So only they ran, only they worked out. So working out or that active lifestyle was never part of the culture that I was raised in. So I just grew up, I ate, and my weight also kept gaining. And I have not checked my weight. The only time I have checked my weight was during my pregnancy, and probably when we had to travel abroad and we did a medical check. That is the only time I checked my weight. I was so ignorant. So that is me. I have never run. In fact, in school, if I had to run, my friends would come and say, Michelle, start running for tomorrow's race. Only then you will reach the finish line. So that is how bad I was. My husband used to beg me, can you please at least go for a walk? Just see the nature around you. So my journey actually started when we were in Sweden in 2016 to 18. I was just amazed at the way how people of all ages, right from kids who are 4 years old to people in their 80s, they ran marathons. Like parks would be filled with people running, walking, and working out in the outdoor gyms. I was like, is this even possible? So that's when I started to think. In my mid 35s, I started to think and I started to walk. I started baby steps with walking, and then the pandemic hit, and we were in India. I don't know, for some reason, something within me said, me and a few friends thought, okay, we will work out online on Zoom. So we started just working out simple walk at home exercises. You can check YouTube, walk at home exercises, and you can walk 5 kilometers within your house doing those workouts. So I just started doing that. And someone introduced me to intermittent fasting. We heard RJ, JC, and RJ Sarah speaking about the gut brain connection. They spoke about eating the right food. This is taking it one step further, eating the right food at the right time. So, all that I did was simple workouts and just monitoring the time that I ate my food. And in fact, even I'm just blown away by how I was able to lose 24 kgs. So that's it.
Wow, that's incredible, losing 24 kgs in 1 year. Uh, well, coming back to another thing that I was, waiting to ask you. Our relationship with our Savior is, linked with how we maintain our body, which is the temple in which the Spirit of God dwells. Have you experienced a more meaningful spiritual life as a result of this journey?
Very true. Yes, yes, absolutely, Liz. See, I started this journey thinking that is a weight loss journey. I need to shed weight. That is how this journey started. And eventually, it became a journey that transformed me from within and without. I feel one of the biggest mistakes I did, and many of us do, is separating the mind and the body. They spoke about the gut and the brain, the mind and the body, the spirit and the body. When we separate it, that's when the mistake happens. The thing is, both are intertwined. Both are like two tracks of the train, two wheels, like two sides of the coin. You cannot isolate them. So when you start working on your body, your inner man starts getting impacted, and it is a wonderful, wonderful journey. And when I started pursuing this intermittent fasting, whatever Jesus spoke about fasting started to make sense. It is as much as a spiritual act, it is an equally physical act, and how it is an act that brings together the mind and the body. And I started noticing that my inner transformation is what was beginning to reflect on the outside in my physical body.
Wow, wonderful. It's amazing. It's amazing that that this transformation has happened, and you're able to grow more closer to God through this experience. Now, I know that there are many who are listening to us who are struggling with managing their weight. It's a constant problem, and also there are related psychological issues. Now, what would be your practical advice to them as we close today?
Yes, for sure, Bob. So the number one tip I would give is take baby steps. I was a person who has never ever worked out or followed a diet plan. As I said to you, I was a person with no plan at all. So what I did was I started taking baby steps. First started with walk at home exercises by Leslie Sanson on YouTube. Then I came to a point where that became too easy for me. Then I moved to slight cardio, and then I moved to little easy strength training exercises, and then I moved to slightly more intense strength training exercises. But I feel when I hear about the reason why many of them start and leave is they take steps that is beyond them. They wouldn't have done anything. All of a sudden, they'll do strength training. All of a sudden, attempting a big diet, which they have absolutely no clue about. When we take giant steps, the chances of us giving up is too easy. The thing is, I would suggest take baby steps. I knew what my struggle was. I would highly recommend own your own journey. Just because someone is following a certain diet, doing a certain exercise, don't get inspiration, but create your own journey. Don't try to mimic somebody else's journey. The reason is somebody else's body type would be different from yours. Their physical capacity might be different from yours. So own your own journey. I knew what my struggle was. I knew I am someone who can never eat a portioned meal. I knew I am a person who can never stick to a diet. So for me, the first easiest thing I thought I would do is just moderate the time in which I was eating. Be mindful of the time that I was eating. That was something very doable. So with that, I started seeing a good difference. Then when I started noticing the difference, I started making dietary changes, small changes, just reducing little sugar. Baby steps is what you must keep in mind. Own your journey. Number 3, ask why. Ask why. That is the most powerful question. Mark Twain said, the 2 most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you ask yourself why. Why do I want to lose weight? Is it just to look good, or is it for longevity, or is it for me to, live more confident and a more healthy life for myself and my family? Ask yourself why, because your why will determine what actions you're going to take and how committed you're going to be. If we are not going to ask ourselves why, our interest will fizzle out very soon. Lastly, ensure you enjoy your journey. The thing is, so often we start a diet and we crib through that diet. I have to do this. I have to do this workout. The minute you start testing your journey, it is not going to help you or impact your body in any way. Take baby steps. Enjoy what you're eating. Enjoy the little activity. It could be walking. It could be any small thing that you do, but do it with joy. When you do it with joy, you would notice that you're not giving up. In fact, you will be attempting greater things and much greater things. I just want to, conclude with this saying. So many say, when I was in 20, I was like this. When I was 15, I was like this. I told Michelle Job, your 20-year-old self should be proud of your 40-year-old self. Your 15-year-old self should look at the 50-year-old Michelle and say, wow, is this what you're doing? We should never be people who are just looking back and glorifying our past. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before, which means whichever age you are in right now is the very best. So give it all that you've got.
Amen. Wow, thank you so much for those wonderful words, Michelle. We really enjoyed your journey and you've put it so eloquently. And I hope that you will join us once again to take us more through the journey and how it's going.
Absolutely, Bob. Tack så jättemycket för idag. Thank you very much for today.
Tack.
Hey,
well, dear listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our session today. Well, like I always say, please do share it with your friends and family, the YouTube links and the Facebook pages. Kindly do share it with friends and family. Let them also be blessed to know these stories and these testimonies of these wonderful men and women of God who come on their radio and share their life with us. Well, you can also see more of Michelle Job on her website, www.michellejobphotography.com, or on her Instagram page, Michelle Job, that's MICHELLEJOB, or she's also having another page on Instagram, that's Michelle Job photography, and you can also find Michelle Job on YouTube. So do visit her pages to look at the photography and also to hear her story on YouTube. Well, once again, it was such a joy to have all of you with us. I love you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in, along with RJ JC, RJ Liz, along with Viju Alex from India. This is Bob signing out. Goodbye, good night, and God be with you.